The Honourable Taylor Martin.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. I wish to speak on the Standing Committee on State Development's report entitled Regional Development and a Global Sydney. The terms of reference for the inquiry were referred to the committee by the Minister for Planning, Housing and Special Minister of State, the Honourable Anthony Roberts MP. The inquiry held 6 hearings in Sydney, Nowra, Orange, Tweed Heads, Armidale and Queanbeyan that informed a discussion paper that was released at the end of last year. I acknowledge the former chair of the committee, the Honourable Greg Pearce, on his chairmanship of the committee throughout its stages of the inquiry until I took up the role of the chair of the committee. Following the release of the discussion papers, the inquiry called for further submissions and held a further hearing earlier this year. Mr Deputy President, Sydney has a thriving economy, an enviable lifestyle, critical links with other major economic regions, and it's a world-class centre for knowledge-based service industries such as financial services and banking, information and communications technology, legal and management services, accounting and, of course, education. Sydney's GDP is expected to grow from $400.9 billion in 2015-16 to $565 billion per year in the year 2031. This inquiry was established to identify how Sydney's growing prominence as a global city can benefit regional New South Wales, whether through the expansion of mechanisms such as international trade, infrastructure, tourism and innovation and research, through better collaboration across levels of government, or through more targeted investment of resources, in particular for regions and industrial areas in our regions. Regional New South Wales is the largest and most diverse regional economy in Australia, home to 2.9 million people, and it's expected to grow to 3.3 million by 2036 and 3.6 million in 2056. Regional New South Wales itself is made of regions that each have different strengths that support its local economy. It is these strengths that need to be leveraged to ensure that regional New South Wales can benefit from having Sydney as a global city. I'm pleased to report that one of our recommendations has already been acted on by the New South Wales Government. The committee recommended that the New South Wales Government review the applicability of all taxes it levies on businesses located in regional areas. As part of this year's budget, the New South Wales Treasurer, the Honourable Dominic Perrottet MP, announced that the New South Wales Government would significantly increase the payroll tax threshold from $750,000 to $1 million by 2021-22. The threshold, the point at which companies start paying payroll tax, will rise to $850,000 this year, $900,000 in 2019-2020, $950,000 in 2020-2021 and $1 million in 2021 to 2022. Nearly 40,000 businesses will save up to $5,450 each in 2018-2019 and up to $13,625,000 per business in 2021-22. This is in addition to the increase by the Coalition Government of the threshold from $658,000 since coming into government in 2011. During the inquiry, we heard from a number of organisations that highlighted the burden of payroll tax. There are 2 levers available to the government when it comes to reducing the payroll tax liability on businesses, Mr Deputy President. The threshold and, of course, the rate itself. Tasmania, the ACT, Queensland and Northern Territory currently have higher tax-free thresholds than New South Wales does. In our state here, we have a rate of 5.45%. This is higher than Victoria, which has a rate of 4.85% for metropolitan employers and a lower rate of 3.65% for regional employers. In Queensland, the rate is 4.75%, and even South Australia has a lower rate than New South Wales, with a tiered rate between 2.5% and 4.95%. Earlier this year, the Tasmanian Government committed to reducing payroll tax to 4% for businesses with payroll of less than $2 million. The committee also heard how the tax-free threshold for payroll tax impacts on regional businesses. The higher the threshold is, the less likely it is to impact on smaller enterprises. In New South Wales, the threshold is $750,000. Tasmania, the ACT, Queensland, Northern Territory and Western Australia all have lower tax-free thresholds. In February and March 2017, the New South Wales Business Chamber conducted a survey of its members, and the survey found that typical payroll tax respondent incurred around $10,700 in administration and compliance costs over and above their payroll tax liability. What sticks out to me is that even for businesses that were just over the payroll tax threshold, compliance costs alone were $10,200. The Business Chamber estimates that increasing the threshold to $1 million, which the New South Wales Government is now doing, would unburden New South Wales businesses by up to $40 million per year in red tape. The survey also found that for 85% of businesses, unsurprisingly, payroll tax has an impact on staffing decisions. This means that the businesses are less likely to hire additional staff, offer extra hours to existing staff, or even offer pay rises to their staff. For businesses operating just below the tax-free threshold, 80% of respondents reported that they would be either more likely to hire additional staff or would do so immediately if the payroll tax-free threshold were increased. The survey also found that if the threshold were increased to $1 million, 44% of all businesses would be likely to increase their staffing levels, and 85% of businesses with a payroll higher than $1 million would use the savings to expand their business operations and increase staffing levels. It is well established, Mr Deputy President, that payroll taxes are an impediment to economic growth and job creation. By reducing the burden of payroll tax, it will boost regional economy and have flow-on effects to our community, customers and suppliers across regional New South Wales. In New South Wales, this government has created the conditions that have made us the #1 state, but I think this is just the beginning, Mr Deputy President. To continue to beat this government's incredible record on the economy, we must continue to look at reducing payroll tax and the benefits that will flow from it being reduced. The inquiry also spent a significant amount of time discussing how to define regional boundaries and recommended that the New South Wales Government work with local governments and the Australian Federal Government to consider proposals through which greater consistency in defining our regions could be achieved. The inquiry heard of various issues that arise when different levels of government and different agencies within those levels of government apply different boundaries for different uses. These issues were best articulated by the Hunter Business Chamber in their submission, who said, and I quote, "The lack of consistent boundaries based on agency and local government definitions can be confusing and inefficient. The incidence of a local government or an agency boundary is known to impact the ability for a business to either apply for or receive benefits under a particular program. At times, businesses located in the same street and across the road from each other can often have different access to different programs. This does not make sense and should be addressed." What is clear, Mr Deputy President, is that there is much conjecture around how different regions should be defined, despite the many variations and suggestions that exist. The inquiry also reported on the opportunity created by City Deals. City Deals are a new approach in Australia and work by creating a partnership between all three levels of government, the community and private enterprise. These organisations then work together to deliver a coordinated and integrated package of initiatives aimed at unlocking the economic and social potential of Australian regional cities. There are currently 3 City Deals in operation: Townsville in Queensland, Launceston in Tasmania, and these City Deals provide a model that could be replicated in regional cities in New South Wales. I'm very glad to see a City Deal for Western Sydney here in New South Wales. And the report notes that the committee supports the Western City Deal and the positive outcomes that it is seeking to achieve in the areas of connectivity, jobs for the future, skills and education, planning and housing, livability and our environment, and of course governance. So I'm certainly keen to observe the progress and the outcomes of the Western Sydney City Deal, with a view to other city deals being established in regional New South Wales in the future. The committee recommends that the New South Wales Government monitor the outcomes of the Western Sydney City Deal and, if successful, consider future city deals throughout regional New South Wales. Mr Deputy President, during the inquiry we discussed at length certain infrastructure projects that can assist regional New South Wales to leverage benefits from Sydney being a global city. On the 9th of March this year, I joined my colleagues, the Parliamentary Secretary for the Hunter and Central Coast, Scott McDonald, the Member for Terrigal, Adam Crouch MP, and the Federal Member for Robertson, Lucy Wicks MP, at Gosford Railway Station on the Central Coast to announce that the New South Wales Government had been one of the successful tenderers for funding from the Commonwealth Government as part of its $20 million Faster Rail initiative. This announcement is a game changer that has the potential to reduce travel time from Newcastle to Sydney by up to 1 hour. I note that Reachtel poll last month found that a fast rail link from Sydney to Newcastle is the top transport priority for more than 1/3 of New South Wales voters. And once again, if I can quote from the Hunter Business Chamber, who said in their submission to this inquiry, regions like the Hunter, with national road and rail as well as international port and airport access and connections, are important trade and tourism gateways for the state and for our national economy. It is vitally important for businesses, for the community and for governments that these key components of infrastructure are identified, preserved and in some cases enhanced, and that's what I'm talking about here with the announcement earlier on this year. I'm happy to report that enhancing the Newcastle to Sydney railway line is a clear goal for this state government. The $6 million in this year's state budget will enable the state government to properly plan possible improvements to existing rail lines to cut commute times. These possible improvements will include reducing the track curvature, deviations and alignments, the junction rearrangement and better segregation of passenger and freight services. And the desire to proceed with this project is highlighted by its inclusion in the Future Transport 2056 report. The Faster Rail for the Central Coast and Newcastle is one project which will dramatically enhance those regions' ability to leverage the benefits from Sydney's status as a global city. The State Development Committee's report into regional development in a global Sydney is a collaboration of the goals, experiences and issues of the 38 submissions, mostly from the regions, and those that appeared before the inquiry throughout its term. I hope that it serves as an important document in growing the ability of regional New South Wales to meet the needs of those who live there. And I'd like to thank the Secretariat and the staff for being involved in all the hard work that they do in this committee, and of course all committee members who gave their time and had their input into this report. Thank you.